Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. I got Greg Machinery, Pete Peterson on to talk about what's happening in the world of auctions and equipment and whatnot. But this edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by John Deere. Greg, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Casey. How are things out in Nebraska?
You know, it's not too bad. It's we got a little rain. Now that it's windy and warmed up back again, so it's back to normal. But it's summertime in Nebraska. Yep.
Here we go. Here comes summer.
That's right. How things up your way? You guys still getting a bunch of rain, or is it settled down?
We got some. We'd been really dry. There were a week and a half ago wildfires in northern Minnesota and along the Lake Superior and two harbors. Some pretty scary stuff. But we did get some rain a week before Memorial Day, and then a little on Memorial Day. So, yeah, it was timely, but it has been cold. But today it's about 92, so that tends to sap this old Norwegian that's too hot.
Yeah, it's a little warm. It's a little warm this time of the year. We actually had a couple days here that are fairly cool, so we had a pretty warm weekend. So again, summertime in Nebraska.
As I get older, I'm increasingly a fan of 60-degree weather. I mean, we need the heat for, heat and rain when we need it for crops and stuff. But I won't argue if it's 65 out. That's a nice day for me.
My joke with my wife all the time is winter needs to last from about the first part of November through the end of January, and then after that it can be whatever it wants to, because that's hunting season. As soon as hunting season's over, it can go be 65 degrees again. It'd be great.
Hunting season. So what do you hunt, Casey? I guess I've never asked you.
I'm a bird hunter. I hunt a lot of upland game, so pheasant, quail, that kind of stuff. Got a pointer and
nice.
A bunch of orange.
How are the pheasant numbers out in western Nebraska these days?
They're really good this year, but it was just so warm that you couldn't hardly hunt them, and they were way ahead of your dog, and I don't move as fast as I used to, so you know.
Oh, I resemble that remark. I hear you. You duck hunt too?
Occasionally, I don't mind it. I don't look for it either, but I don't mind it so much. But I go out and if I can get some ducks, I like duck hunting. I don't so much like goose hunting, those kind of things. Funny thing a lot of guys do around here with their geese, they go shoot geese, and then if they're cleaned, you can take them to the zoo here in town, and they'll feed the goose to the lions and whatnot. So it's pretty
wow. Cool. That's so you have a zoo in Scottsbluff?
It's got animals in a cage, yeah, and so
that's awesome. I did not. I've been to Scottsbluff a couple times. Next time I'm checking out the zoo. That's awesome.
It's the it would be the equivalent of of a retirement home for zoo animals, if there's such a thing. There's they've got a few gray hairs on them out here at the old Scottsbluff County Zoo. So.
Well, once again, I resemble that remark, so it's all good. It's all good.
It's a neat little zoo. They got.
Cool.
Some monkeys and whatnot, so it's all right. It's all right for a little bitty town.
Well, for those monkeys, that's kind of next level. And my experience has been, lots of little zoos. We got buffalo out here outside of Rochester. No lions, and definitely no monkeys. That's that's next level. You guys do it right now in Nebraska.
Well, it's an old chimpanzee, if I remember right. It's been a long time since I've been there. We used to take our kids there all the time.
Oh, great for little kids,
when they were younger. But it's been a few years since we've been. But I probably should go back out there sometime and take a lap, see what's there. Every year
that's why I like talking to you every week, Casey, because we can be talking about used equipment, but all of a sudden we're talking about chimpanzees or something. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things swinging around on some tree limbs out there. If you watch some of these auctions lately, there's been a fair amount of volume that's come through again, and we're still tracking, higher prices than we've seen over the last 18 months. So good stability in the marketplace. That's what we're really striving for at the auction marketplace, is that stability, because that's the footing for everything for the overall marketplace. So, so if you're in the market to trade something in, things are back, to a fairly decent number now again. So that's good. But there's been, before we started talking, we were talking about some sprayers and stuff you saw sell and saw an Apache sell and those kind of things. But I think the sprayer marketplace to me is it's really setting itself up to see some dynamic changes just because of the technology that you can get now on these machines and the layered entry levels that you can look at and kind of ramp things up. When you're out there, let's talk a little bit about this sprayers that you saw go through sell, and then we can come back to this. But as you're watching this go through, sometimes I feel like guys are looking at sprayers, especially some of these older sprayers. Like when I first started in this business, if it was 3,500 hour, 5,000 hour, 6,000 hour sprayers were like you didn't really see. They weren't a hot item. But here lately, you watching those sell, and there's shockingly some pretty high prices on them.
Yeah, I think you're right, Casey. Just like we see with tractors the last maybe 2 years, if it's good shape, even with higher hours, those hard cash auction prices have solidified again. With the caveat being, it's got to be good condition. So, for example, we saw a John Deere 4830. I think it was a 10 model, so it's pre-def. You got to consider that whole thing. But our friends at the Steffes Group sold it May 20th. So as we're recording, it's a week ago. So last Wednesday, it was an online sale. But the sprayer was from Lake Park, Minnesota, and it had 2,341 engine hours on it. And a couple episodes ago, you were talking about parsing data. So the spray hours on it were only 908, and it brought $82,000, which was pretty interesting because the average auction price so far this year in a 4830 is just over 73.1, and that's actually up 4.8%. Last year, the average auction price was about 69.8. And last year it was up 3.5%. But the two previous years, of course, 23 and 4, we saw big drops. They were down percentage-wise 26.1 and 29.9. So there's that footing you were talking about solidifying since that drop, the correction in 24, basically. And I think with sprayers, Casey, Deere in particular and others now with retrofit, making what's old new again in this technology. I wonder if sprayers will go down the planter path, what we see there in the used market, if it's retrofit just right for that area. If you're in western Minnesota, it's beet country, you need it this way, you need these things, versus central Illinois, you want it another way. And when it's spec'd right, the hard cash auction price will be like, ooh, that was strong. But if it's one that has not been updated, then it's kind of ouchy. And I wonder if we won't see that kind of develop more in the used sprayer market at auction. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. If you look at, me and Aaron Fennell used to talk about it, way back when we first started this about planters, then we called them precision donors, right? Because they were like a $40,000 or $50,000 planter that was going to take a lot more than you paid for it to just get it halfway usable again. Right. And so my mindset was like, hey, they're buying this cheap so they can go do, or they're talking about a Deere system or a precision plant system, like whatever they were going to do, right? Those are going to be what was really kind of falling into place. And then, so you start looking at some of these sprayers and you start looking at what the biggest contributing factor to a sprayer is, obviously the powertrain. And then, the motors associated with the spray systems, right? What kind of shape are they in and those kind of things, and, wheel motors and engines and hydrostats and those kind of things. And as long as that stuff's in pretty good shape, you can kind of start going through that. And the cool thing about the way the technology is like, I don't have to go buy a complete upgrade kit to make it work, right? I can buy a piece here, a piece there, a piece there, whatever. Same thing with planters, right? You can do the same thing. You kind of piece it together how you want to, and kind of build your foundational base of technology and then kind of slowly add to it as you need to. But I'm kind of wondering if some of these sprayers I've been watching, some of these really high-hour sprayers I've been watching go across the block, if that's maybe not some mindset that there's associated with those. Now, obviously, the year of the machine is going to play a huge role in what you can and can't do, right? Because like I think on a Deere system, like at 2018 is the oldest you can go back to where the entire portfolio can be applied to it. Anything new older than that, there's parts and stuff that you can go. I can go all the way back to like 2010 on some nozzles and those kind of things. But you kind of knowing where you're at, what you're doing. So I don't know. There's part of me that some advice I'd like to throw out to some folks would be like, man, take a hard look at that 2018 sprayer that's got 3,000, 4,000 hours on it. And, obviously you need to look it over and make sure it's in good shape. But you're opening the door up to, I don't need to go out and spend $600,000 or $800,000 on a new sprayer, right? I can spend 50 here, 25 there, 30 over here. Next thing you know, I spent $250,000 over the course of a 5-year period or something like that.
Right.
And I'm now have a, for all intents and purposes, I got the same stuff that's coming off the factory line.
Yep. You're taking advantage of the latest technology. Mm-hmm. And like you say, you're being, what is perfect for the environment today. It's like, it's a big old check for a new one and a big commitment, but you can get the tech. Hats off to manufacturers for making, those components available back down the chain. So 2018, it's hard to believe, but that's, 8 years old now.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, the history of care on the thing. So if it's an 18 or 19 or 20, I was just looking at some auctions today, and I think the auction company did a really nice job working in the one owner factor. Don't bury the lead. I mean, way down on line 6 or 8 or whatever. Put it right up front. And then, even on an older one like this 10 model that sold a week ago for, what was that, 82,000. Saying how many spray hours it had, 900 plus spray hours versus the 23 engine. So then it lets a potential buyer go, well, okay, 2,300 engine, but 908 spray hours. And then I can't remember if that was one owner, but again, you can work those pieces in. But I know on the planner side, it just hard cash auction pricing. It's really hard for me analyzing all the data as it pours in to just give one statement to the planting and seeding market, because you'll find these used ones that are spec'd out just right and they sell strong, and then the other ones just don't. So when dollars are tight, finding exactly what you need, whether it's a planter or a tractor, has become more important. And I think across the board, that's kind of what we're still seeing, Casey. I know there was another sale Saturday in Pennsylvania, Corey, Pennsylvania, that I was watching. I think that was TriStar Auctions had that one. Nice hay equipment. They had a 15 model New Holland roll belt 450, 7,600 bales through it. Looked really sharp. Went for 23,000, and I thought that was pretty solid. And then I went back in our data, found one almost a year ago, also on an auction in Pennsylvania, but that was an 18 model with fewer bales through it, like 5,500 bales through it, brought 23.5. So again, a 10, 11-year-old round baler, if it's nice, the money is holding there. But again, if it's not sharp condition, then you start to see that, bigger slide off quicker these days.
Yeah. There's a, it is amazing. You see that, like you talked about, you see that there's those hard stops in there, son, as you look at these different models as you're working your way through there, and knowing where those hard stops are at. I've talked about this on here before, but knowing where those hard stops are at, whether you're talking about a reconditioning point or you're talking about a year, make, model, hour point, understanding what those hard breaks are is really important when it comes time to sell something. When you're looking at the trade, either you're taking to auction or you're going through trade cycles or whatever it might be, understanding what those are at and what's it mean if I jump out a little bit earlier, I go past that point. What do those look like? And truly understanding that stuff makes a huge difference in how you're going to go about your next buying decision. And I think that's something the guys really need to pay close attention to.
Yeah, for sure. And I know right around the corner here, we've got some auctions, kind of market setting type events. One I got my eye on is, as we're recording this, it's 2 days out. It's Friday, May 29th. Our friend Ed with Ed's Machinery in Memphis, Missouri. Ed's a great guy down there. Known him for years. I know you worked with him and talked to him, Casey, and a lot of very late model Sharp equipment and kind of a great mix. I just posted this morning. He's got an 8R 370 with like 178 hours, an 8R 280 with low hours, a 6R 140 with hardly any hours. But then he'll sprinkle in like a pre-def John Deere 7630 two-wheel drive with a loader with only 1,583 hours. And if you like red, Ed on Friday has a 3688 International two-wheel drive with low hours, I think like 3,300 hours. So I'll be watching that to see how those numbers come in. A lot of combines on that sale too, late model combines. And for listeners, if you're starting to look ahead to harvest for your combine needs or thoughts, I just looked on our website, machinerypete.com, and you can search by just auction. And we had 167 combines coming up at auction, and 41 of them are 1 to 5 years old.
Yeah.
And then if you're in the class, I did note there were 10 class Lexions, and there's some really late model ones. I think Ed has one on Friday. Mm-hmm. So, it'll be interesting to see how the combine market kind of does here late spring into summer.
Well, there they are, mocking you. See you next year, loser. That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like ExactApply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with ExactEmerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose ExactShot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with FurrowVision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planter upgrades and see why nothing runs like a Deere.
Yeah. That is interesting to watch the combine space, now that you bring that up, because you saw a little perk up here at the end of 25 going into 26, really leveled off and kind of actually dipped,
Yep.
It feels like it's leveled out and it's maybe kind of starting to creep up just a little bit, but combines are such a 4-letter word in the equipment space anyway. I mean, just where that dip kind of came in and now you're starting to see it level back out.
4-letter word. So you mean good, nice?
No, the
other
other kind of
4-letter words.
The other kind of 4-letter words.
Okay,
yeah.
just checking.
Yeah, so it's to watch them dip and then come back out of that. To me, it shows a couple of things. One is there's still a lot of 1 and 2 year old equipment on the marketplace, right? That stuff's still there. But what the market's still starving for is that 3 to 5 year old, well, basically 5 to 10 year old stuff, right? And really on a combine, you would kind of back that up a little bit. That 3 to 7 year old stuff is really what that really sweet spot in the combine market is. And watching that get depleted, just like everything else has gotten depleted in that whole range.
Right.
I think that's kind of brought that kind of shoestringed up the rest of the market with it when that dip in supply started to come and started to really be evident. You started seeing the lift. It kind of lifted up everything around it as far as, if there's not a 3 to 5 year old something, maybe I need to start looking at if I can afford that 2 year old something, or maybe I need to start looking at a 7 or 10 year old something, what's that mix look like and how do things come into play? Or another thing I've seen a lot of too, and this is where you watch how a lot of the stuff that takes place and transpires. The guys that have the 3 to 5 year old stuff, that sweet spot stuff, you're starting to see them show up with taking stuff to auction or for sale by owner, or those kind of things. You're starting to see some of that stuff, those kind of situations pop into there as well. So it's a dynamic marketplace, but all of that's kind of softly brought up the combines market from where it was earlier this year.
think you're right, Casey. It's just that little solidification, I guess you could say. One thing, when you go into our website, machinerypete.com, and you punch up like an S770 or whatever, an 8250 on the red side, there's an application in there where you can crunch an average and you can zero it down by model year, hour range, whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was some pretty severe adjustments there. But again, I think, like you said, the supply issue starting to tighten across the board is sort of kind of brought in a little bit of a floor level to that. And historically, doing this for 36 plus years, this time frame from like late May through summer, I think you could look at it from afar and say, well, it would not be a great time to buy a combine, right? Whatever. But actually, it's like the perfect time to be an aggressive buyer. Because, we've come out of the busy planting, at least upper Midwest, and dealers, if they're making adjustments, got some offers on some inventory. But I always thought that mindset-wise, farmers were just kind of in a holding mode. Kind of, especially late May, June, might be too wet, too dry. We don't know how things are going to come out. It just didn't lend itself to an aggressive, I got X amount of dollars, it was just kind of wait and see mode. And so when others are pulling back or waiting, our data used to show a quite noticeable dip, kind of that April, May, through August.
Yep.
And even on harvest equipment.
Yep.
And so, like the sale Ed has on Friday and down in Memphis, Missouri, with all those late model combines and tractors. But again, hard cash, that'll be real interesting to see how they hold up. And we'll try to pump those right into our website so you can compare, to other ones that just sold, to give you, that feel that we all want, when you're buying, selling, or trading.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's you made a good point there. I mean, that's one of the things that you can really watch how these things flow out. I mean, we're kind of at the point now, especially if you're looking for something like we just talked about, right? That's in the middle, right? It's not, the stuff in the middle it's not so expensive that people can't afford it, but it's not so used up that they're walking into a giant problem. So it's kind of like right there in the middle where it's good, kind of bang for your buck, right? And watching this stuff come through, when you watch these auction stuff, you see the level of equipment coming from that. Now, some of that stuff is coming from all different kinds of places, right? You got the forced retirement sales, you got these different things, the bad side of ag and farming and stuff like that. But a lot of stuff too is just like, hey, I've got an extra tractor. My dad and mom ran this farm with 4 tractors, and I've got 7. Do I really need the others? Do I really need these 3 tractors, right? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I think a lot of folks are stopping and taking a look at now, going like, what do I really need to have to operate? And I think you're starting to see some of that spill over into the auction space.
Right. What's your take, Casey, on the fact that we've talked for quite a while now here about the tightening of the raw inventory, and particularly on the grain side, from a farmer mindset, we know, basically it's, stretching the life of my equipment line, stretching the dollars, being very careful, super understandable. But, again, this is stretched out for quite a while. Do you foresee the back half of 26, that farmer mindset? I mean, when are we going to get to the point where it's like, okay, even if I don't want to, I kind of need to look at a new, whether it's in the used market, whatever, I got to get a new planter, a new used combine or something, because I just need to, because it's been a while. Yeah. Do you think we're tiptoeing closer to that, or what's your gut tell you there?
Well, I think we are. I think we're there. I mean, the pent-up demand for equipment is there. I mean, you can tell by the volume at auction, right? I mean, that's a pretty good indicator. If there was no real demand for equipment, then we wouldn't see the number of bids that we've seen at auctions or the dollars associated with that stuff either. So that's a good indicator. I think when you're looking at the OR space, as I look at 26, there's some dynamic stuff that's happening in the marketplace that's going to, in certain areas, that could have a big effect on regionally speaking, like that here with, the drought stuff. Okay, so the water coming through the canals from the mountains for irrigation, that's down by like 30, like down to 30 or 40%. Like it's not off 30 or 40%. It's that's what you're going to get. So there's just some guys that just flat won't get water. They should grow anything. A lot of prevent plant, those kind of things. I'm not familiar enough with how the prevent plant stuff works, but from what I understand, there's a bit of a silver lining there, right? So that could have an effect on what's going on in the marketplace. But I think if you look at what it is right now, getting stuff planted, and how everyone likes to jump up and down about the planting progress report, and it goes from being 5% planted to 65% planted in a weekend. As soon as you get some dry weather, they can make it go. But it feels like 26 is going to be a slow grind to a better situation than we've seen the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be like, oh, we're 27s here now. It's gumdrops, candy canes. It's nothing like that. But it's a slow grind into that like better, more prosperous times.
Now I'm distracted because one of my favorite things is life are gumdrops. So I am with you though, Casey. It's I've had some Wall Street calls, and of course they're trying to look through the crystal ball, saying when will new sales begin to finally jump? And that's sort of what I was getting at. Is we've stretched this period out, and it looks like 26 won't be a great gumdrop situation, rainbows and gumdrops for new sales. I started to spitball and just sort of wonder if we go another year and a half, if we're out to the end of 27 and commodity prices are still the same. I mean, I know people went into this downturn with basically a lot of iron and a lot of late model iron, which made this belt tightening easier.
Right.
But you give it another year and a half, with the way manufacturers have pinched in, which and they've never done it to this level before, just turned off the spigot. So, and we're already seeing the used funnel tighten. It'll just be real interesting to see how this all plays out. That's my one caution. If farmers are listening to this for your long-term planning, whether it's combines, like I say, maybe this summer is a good time to be aggressive because get this uncertainty. But you do have to be really aware of the macro forces here, the tightening overall of that late model used inventory, and the fact that manufacturers, the spigot is off.
Yeah.
So, you're okay now, but a year and a half from now, what you don't want to have happen is you get into that spot, whether it's your sprayer, your planter, your tractor, whatever, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to do something. But now's the moment everyone else decides at the same time.
Right.
Into a tight market. And then, then guess what Machinery Pete's going to be writing about? Sky high record auction prices, even when dollars are tight. So,
yeah. So I'm in a similar boat with you on that. What I think though is going to continue to feed this situation that we're in is, in order to get used equipment, you got to sell new equipment, right? And you got to bring in a trade. And I don't see the numbers out there that are convincing me that we're going to go back to selling. Oh, we're going to go out and sell 10,000 new whatever combines or whatever the number, whatever it is, right? I just don't see that happening. And
this is that new normal you've been talking about for quite a while.
Yeah, and it's going to be now. You're still going to have your annual roll guys and those kind of things, but those numbers have really contracted way down. If you go back out and talk to dealers and stuff like that, like how many actual guys are doing a yearly roll with right now, I bet it's 25% of what it was, if it's even that much.
By design, right?
Yeah,
they wanted to pinch that down.
Yeah,
that
crunch that down.
That does bring up an interesting. We talked last week about this upshoot 19.5% jump in the number of machinery auctions through early May this year. And like you said before, it's all across the spectrum. There's bankruptcies, unfortunately, but there are an increasing amount of auction events, which we need new verbiage for. And it's either just a downsizing of your equipment line, which tends to be some pretty late model stuff, or at the top end, this has gone on far enough where we're seeing, a lot of, God bless them, farmers, 75 years old and up, just deciding now is the time I'm going to stop the equity drain. And when I started doing this 36 years ago, when I would see an 80-year-old farmer have a retirement sale, there was not a lot of big late model equipment for the most part on those sales.
Right.
And that is very common now.
Right.
You'll have an 80-year-old farmer and he's got 3, 4, bought stuff back in 22 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And here you got a low-hour skid steer and a combine. And it's like, well, how old is this dude? He's like 82. Mm-hmm. But that's a function of what we came through the past 2.5 decades with tax policy, Section 179 and the rules and the whole thing. So, but we are into that new normal you've talked about. And I just think the farther we tiptoe down into this new normal, there might be some unforeseen things happen, which the canary in the coal mine as always will be like Ed's sale on Friday. Okay, what did that 23 model X9 1000 with 350 engine out, what did it bring? What did someone write a check for? And is that up? Is that down? We'll see.
Yeah, and that's the with that new normal, and you start looking at the amount of new equipment that 1 and 2 year old stuff that's going to make its way back to the marketplace. I just don't see those things getting really, and also too, I think the other thing driving that is a lot of guys again. Do I need 7 tractors when this farm's been farmed with 4 for a really long time before that? And the other side of that too is, how often do I really need to trade? Right? How often do I really need to trade my tractor? Right? How often do I really need to trade my combine? Like what am I comfortable with? Those kind of things. And like those extending of trade cycles is another thing too that I think is going to continue to drive some of this stuff. So yeah, there might be a shrinking of the amount of new population that gets put back into the system, but that's not necessarily solves the problem, right? I mean, you still have to have the number of buyers to come in and buy it, right? So I mean, if you've got one and you can't sell it, you got one too many, right? And that's just how it works. And that's going to be the same process through the used equipment cycle that we've watched over the last 20 years that I've been doing this. Watch its way through that you hit a point in time when you can only sell so many of X, and then you've oversupplied the marketplace, and that's where auctions come into play.
All these years doing this, in a weird esoteric way, I've always pictured a merry-go-round, with the music playing when we used to go on them as kids, and then took our kids to the merry-go-round and kind of go around, wouldn't go too fast. But then we've seen a couple periods where that in our space, the farm equipment space, where that merry-go-round gets going, hold on tight, everything's flying. But to me, that new normal you're talking about, when I picture the space, it's like when the music stops, and then it's a question. And so the merry-go-round grinds to a halt pretty much. And then it's a question of how long does the merry-go-round stay put? And we're drifting, in my 36 years, we're drifting now into a period where that merry-go-round hasn't been going for a while. And that's that new normal. And that's where it's so dangerous for our great farm listeners who have decades and generations and centuries of built up knowledge on the farm of how they handle their equipment and the full cash flow. But they haven't seen this before. It hasn't been like this. And so that's what, again, just to be aware of it. And, I guess eyes wide open, so to speak.
Yep, for sure. I think that's the key to that. And that merry-go-round analogy is a pretty good one. It's like I take my kids to the county fair and stuff like that, and they always have the Ferris wheel. And it seems like you get a ride for 15 minutes, but 12 of those minutes is a stop and go to let people on and off. And then you finally get like 3 revolutions and you get off, right? And that's kind of what it feels like, like it's stop and go, it's slow grind, it's you up there swinging back and forth in the chair, and then soon you move a little bit, we're getting ready to go now, and then you stop again, we're getting ready to go, stop again. And it's just the stop and go that we're seeing of the marketplace, like it's starting to, but still just a slow grind. I don't want anyone to take what I'm saying as anything negative, because I'm not being negative here. I'm saying like it's just a slow, steady grind that's going to continue to kind of inch things up and up. I mean, I think.
Well, like you said before, Casey, it was footing with the auction prices. So when I say John Deere 4830 sprayers are up 4.5% this year. Is that magic? No, that's just real. And that's that footing, like you said at the top, that it's in place to build on that. And where we were 2 years ago in 24 was a wholly different place. And I've never seen the space shift so quickly. And that's, because we have fewer dealers and they're massive, and they, my dad had 2 stores. He couldn't sell his way out from under that excess back in the day because he'd been out of business.
Right.
Now they can, in massive losses, but this is why the manufacturers wanted fewer dealers, because it fosters a more efficient turn. And so, again, we're in an interesting spot. And okay, now I'm thinking about merry-go-rounds and Ferris wheels. And I think there might be a correlation there with our rural faith, because we hopped on those things and we took our kids there, and these things just came off the highway. And you slap it together, and we'll put our 2 little precious angels on this. It's just all, hey, it works out.
Yeah.
And the new business idea of the day, I think, when Machinery Pete retires, I might have to start a gumdrop business.
There you go.
Machinery Pete gumdrops. I could go county fair to county fair.
I thought you were going to tell me you're going to be a carny.
That's all your fault. You brought it up.
I thought you were going to go, I'm going to be a carny and get the carnival going. I can picture you being Joe Dirt on the tilt-a-whirl. I can see that, see that.
I don't know if Mrs. Machinery Pete would go for that lifestyle, so to speak.
She could throw the hoop toss thing on top of the jar thing. She could run that game. There you go.
I played basketball solid till I was 20, but I could not, the little thing where you shoot and that rim was like this big. Yeah. I could sit there and pump in $15, and that's where you start to figure out sometimes the game is rigged. So a lot of life lessons. The other life lesson I learned one year in my little town of Benson, for they brought through, kind of like you were saying with the lions and stuff. They brought through a traveling, like a circus, but on a small scale. So they did have a gorilla. It's the only time a gorilla has been in Benson, Minnesota, and it was in this cage. You feel bad for it, but we were walking through this thing, and my dad, he's kind of a wise guy, 88 now, and he kind of made a little face at the gorilla when the gorilla spit at him and plastered him. Mr. John Deere just got soaked by this gorilla on this traveling train. So that was a life lesson. Don't ever antagonize monkeys. So see what you can learn on Moving Iron Podcast.
That's right. I had a chance to look up here. What's that? It's called, the zoo in Scottsbluff is called the Riverside Discovery Center. And they do have chimpanzees, and they've got a tiger. So,
well, there you go. If you got your kids or grandkids through Scottsbluff, and then all we need is what's your best local restaurant recommendation for Scottsbluff? What's your favorite?
Well, if you like Mexican food, it's a great place to stop because there's plenty to pick from, right? But we have a local brewery here in town that does wood-fired pizzas and stuff, and they make their own beer and whatnot. So that's kind of my hangout. So
nice.
Whenever I get out of my cage, just like the big gorilla, So,
out of the cage, yes, exactly.
All right, Greg. Folks want to reach out to you. Best way to do it is go through your socials or go to machinerypete.com.
Yeah, email link on the bottom. Just reach out, folks. Always happy to visit. We got a few outings coming up. Should be fun. So keep an eye on social. We'll let you know where we're headed next.
Right on. Well, Greg, we appreciate you being on the podcast. We'll catch you again next week.
Sounds great, Casey. Have a good week.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.